So in Union Township, we have a new administrator, Susan Cohen Ayres. She was hired last night, and she never said a word in public before last night or last night. It was a complete backroom situation with no transparency for the citizens and no citizen engagement. There is a consistent false narrative from the trustees around, particularly Ken Geis. Somehow Ken Geis is evil. He lives in their head. I know I live in their heads, but he also lives in their heads. There was complete hypocrisy from the Miller Place people who were all for unbelievable transparency, but now it doesn't matter. It's okay. Everything's great without having transparency. And John Becker at the very end laid out what appeared to be voting that took place in executive session and action that took place in executive session, which I think was probably illegal. But good news is, John mentioned at some point in his comments, I hope I haven't said too much. So what I'm going to do is play some highlights from last night. You can go watch the entire 4+ hour meeting video, which is a ridiculous trustee meeting. It's a product of them moving from 2 meetings a month to only 1 and having a shitload of executive sessions all the time now. But I'm going to play some highlights of this and then and give some comment along the way. I'm going to try to not stop it too much because it's 24 minutes of highlights from the meeting. And so I might just talk over for some comments, but every now and then I might feel the need to stop it and just give you a comment or two. So let's get rolling. Let's start with public participation took place before the hiring. And of course, Bill Thomas had to talk and I talked. And those are the 2 highlights from public participation that I have. So let's start with Mr. Bill Thomas.
Public comments. Is there anyone that wishes to speak tonight? Public comments?
Bill Thomas, 838 Oregon Lane. Gentlemen, I come tonight to talk to you about a resolution that's going to be presented to you here in a few moments by a recognizable figure here in the community.
I'm the recognizable figure.
Last night, we have what's called a central committee in Union Township. The central committee in Union Township is comprised of Republicans that are supposed to be conservative-minded, and
Not
we're
just
supposed
any
to link
Republicans,
up with
precinct
our
committeemen.
GOP at the county. What's going to happen is these select few folks have banded together to
Bill Thomas is
create a
part of this
resolution,
group, as are all the elected
admonishing
officials
all of
in
you
Union
for
Township, the trustees
your
of
work
this
in
law.
appointing the new township administrator. I have checked into it with several other townships, and nothing that you guys have done here is out of sorts. Everything going into executive session. When you're hiring a new administrator that has not turned in their previous notice to where they're at, it puts them at risk if they're applying elsewhere, that they could, lose their job. So this is all confidential information.
Completely
and
false. It's
going into
not
executive
confidential.
session.
It's
And it's the
government work.
precedence
Any applications are
has been
public.
set in many other townships. So I'm here to tell you that our leadership of Claremont County GOP are not aligned with what you're about to be presented. So it's
They're
going to be
aligned more with
presented
bribe offers
from
and
a
petition
GOP
fraud.
organization, but it is not heard from our Claremont County leadership from the GOP. And I think all of you have done, in the couple of months that you've been here, an outstanding job trying to pick up a very difficult situation where you had an administrator leave without notice and without a transition plan, which is very unprofessional.
So I want to pause there because that's complete lie bullshit. But Mr. Thomas likes to lie, and the people sitting up there right now, they're good with the lies if it supports their narrative. Ken Geis gave 7 weeks notice before he left. The transition plan was going to have Corey Wright be the new administrator. Then Corey bolts out the door, supposedly for some dream opportunity. I think more running screaming from the Buddy train wreck that's has a facade over it right now. But the notion that there was no transition plan and that there was no notice, it's a complete fucking lie. It is a complete lie, but that's what Mr. Thomas is good at, so let's pick up.
And you're, Corey having his offer and having to go. So it's put the township in a very risky position, and you had to jump on this and hire someone. So with that being said, I also looked into the situation of Mr. Geis and what was paid out to him.
So now we're going to have some demonizing of Ken Geis. Ken Geis lives in this guy's head. He lives in the head of the people up there, Michael Logue. They're constantly talking about Ken Geis. Ken Geis was a godsend for our community. It's why we have such prosperity in Union Township. These guys are full of you know what. And the reason they're doing this is to try to create a new narrative of the past because I don't think they're ever going to be able to live up to the narrative of the past of what Ken Geis did. But let's keep rolling.
And I am very disturbed that the township paid out $68,000 to Mr. Geis in severance pay.
He got
Mr.
no
Geis
severance
left
pay.
on his own
He got his
accord.
accumulated vacation
So I dug
time.
into it a little deeper to find that Mr. Geis's contract was written by himself, and he does not have any limit on vacation days. So you're going to tell me in 12 years that he's accumulated $68,000 in PTO that had to be paid out to him? So I would like the trustees to address that tonight
So
publicly.
Geis came back in
and put the
2010
facts on the record
and did
as
not
to
get paid
why
his
we shelled out
unused vacation time
$68,000 to a
every
guy
year,
that
so it
quit
kept
without
accruing.
notice.
Because when he came
And how in
back,
the world a
township was in a
contract
financial
was
mess.
ever written for a township
this guy doesn't
administrator
want to
to
remember
not
the
have
Doug Walker
caps
era.
on their vacation days. We have a legal authority, I thought, what was his name, Barbier or whoever, who I believe Ken Geis's daughter works for. And there's all
always
these ties, and
smear
I've gone
job
through this in
things.
previous
There's
meetings. I
some
won't
sort of
repeat it,
connection.
of his
Ken Geis-
son-in-law
this-
doing business
It's
with
just this
CEC
constant,
and all these ties. But
visceral
I do want
hatred of
answers
Ken Geis.
from this board tonight as to why we're shelling out that money, why there were no caps, and in the new contract, are we going to ensure that this doesn't happen again? Because we're paying somebody 68, I know when you quit a job, you don't get paid severance typically. I mean, if you just upright
You
and
didn't
quit,
get
don't
paid
transition.
severance, Bill. Why don't you
that's
tell the truth?
unbelievable.
And if you're concerned
So
with
I
the
am
new contract,
disturbed
why don't you
about
get a
that.
copy
But
of it
on
like I
another
did
note,
via
I
public
do
records
appreciate
request,
all
so
the
you
work you
could look
guys
at what
have
it said in
done
it.
to try to recover
But I guess
from
you're
this
too
mess that we
fixated
were
on
left
Ken
with.
Geis.
And this resolution is a disgusting display of just vengeance, politics, sour grapes of previous trustees, banding.
I'm going to read the resolution in a second. Remember, it's disgusting, what is vindictive or whatever he said, vengeance, politics. Wait till you actually hear the resolution. It's disgusting. It's disgusting that we should have had some transparency in the administrator selection process. That's disgusting.
With an individual and trying to make you guys look bad. And the public needs to see through this nonsense and ignore what they're about to hear. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Chris Hicks. I live at 444 Woodward Court, Cincinnati, Ohio. And I'm the villain. I'm the demon. Everybody look at me. It's Satan right before you. I have prepared remarks. I have a couple copies if anybody wants them. I'm going to read them very quickly. Last night, on March 7th, the Union Township Central Committee met, the UTRCC. The UTRCC is a body comprised of the Claremont County Republican Party precinct executives who cover the precincts in Union Township. I am the chair and serve as the township executive in the Claremont County Republican Executive Committee. All the Union Township government elected officials are members of the UTRCC. The UTRCC meets on the first Monday of each month. Anybody's welcome. It has done so for years and years. It has been a point of pride for many members of our township, members that our township Republican Party meets regularly. Last night, after long discussion and editing, the UTRCC passed the resolution I am about to read. I don't want to disappoint. Union Township Republican Central Committee Resolution, Township Administrator Selection Process, Monday, March 7th, 2022. Whereas government transparency, open and public deliberation, and citizen engagement is important in important decisions is invaluable. Whereas a selection process is taking place in Union Township for a new township administrator. Whereas the selection process to date has lacked public transparency and citizen engagement. Therefore, be it resolved that the UTRCC calls on the Union Township trustees to share finalist information and allow the community to review and provide comment back to the trustees before an administrator hiring is finalized. Be it further resolved that the UTRCC calls on the Union Township trustees to host an open public session for public input prior to finalizing the hiring of an administrator. I voted for it, as did all but a few committee members in attendance. I think it is simple, factual, moral, and ethical. I was glad last night that several people provided edits to make and keep it simple, factual, moral, and ethical. Demonizing me or any member of the UTRCC does not change that what I just read is simple, factual, moral, and ethical. The committee wants to see you and our township succeed. They want to see in action what they have heard from you in meetings about transparency, openness, engagement, inclusion, and engaging the community. And I don't appreciate the smirk, Mr. Logue. Those are my remarks. I hope that you will hear the community that I believe elected you guys in part on promises of great transparency, openness, and citizen inclusion. In fact, you criticized prior regimes that they didn't have enough open meeting sessions for input. You criticized them for having too many executive sessions and doing things behind closed doors. The administrator selection is not just important for some members of our community or a region of our community, it is important for the entire community, and it deserves to be treated in a better way. I'm going off my script because I just want to mention one thing. Some of you might have read in the paper, University of Cincinnati is considering a new police chief. What did they do? They put all the 3 finalist information online. They had public sessions with each one of them. They had a survey for people who attended the sessions to provide input back to the people making the decision. The same thing happened with Cincinnati Public Schools. The same thing happened in the city of Fairfield. Why isn't it happening here? I thank you for hearing my remarks. I hope you will take into consideration your own campaign promises for openness, transparency, and citizen engagement in important decisions with this community. Thank you.
We have heard, tonight, we have heard just optimistic and positive messages from community leaders supporting this board and in support of this candidate. But I
That was a
personally,
pre-written script.
I've heard echoes of the same from several business owners, a few sentiments that I'd like to share. Dan Rolfus, who's the chairman of Center Bank, he said, "Congratulations to the board. It is vital to not let that position sit vacant, and to have had such competition in this market is a compliment to the board and township. Good luck, Susan." And Rick Welker, RJ Cinemas and Distillery and ambassador with the Chamber of Commerce, said, "This is great news to hear and looking forward to meeting Susan. Great work by the board."
So think about this. You didn't get to hear anything. You didn't get any information on finalists. There were no sessions that the public could attend. But these people, which I don't even think live in Union Township, they somehow knew who was getting selected, and they knew what was happening in advance. It's wrong. It is cronyism. It is back room. Let's keep going.
There is more echoes behind that, but those are two that stood out, two individuals that are always very engaged in the community, and they're out there doing great work. So again, the time that I actually have the opportunity to speak to both of you, it's just great to be able to share that type of stuff with you as well. So look, I'm proud of the board's competitive and open process. We had over 12 applications, nearly 15 hours interviewing, considering candidates. You heard us approve the special meeting minutes earlier in the evening, all those publicly noticed.
There
All
were
of
no
our meetings
minutes.
were
They were
properly
executive
noticed.
sessions. They
Applications
basically
were
said we
available
went
to
into
the public,
executive session.
and all of us were available for feedback.
Where
Our
would we give you
process-
feedback? So the application information was never available. There were no public meetings. When was this feedback part going to happen? And the only way you could have even seen applications themselves is if you went to my Hicks Watchdog Facebook page, because I got them through a records request that I had to pull teeth to get copies of the applications, which, by the way, are public records. But let's keep going.
Mirrors what local governments around the state do when hiring a top level official. And
So remember, these guys promised this uber transparency. Now we're rationalizing everything, and you're going to hear more of it. Well, other people don't do transparency, so we're okay not doing transparency. There wasn't enough transparency before, but here's something I want to share with you. I think a lot of people know Ken Geis now does some consulting work in Batavia. Did anybody check? Bill Thomas, did you check what happened when Batavia hired Ken Geis? They had a public open session before they hired him so that members of the community could ask him questions. So don't tell me about what's normal. Don't tell me about what people, other people do it this way, Mr. Logue. Quit your bullshit routine about transparency sometime and then wanting to say, well, everything I do this way is okay. I can rationalize it. But the rationalization is really going to come here.
With some research, gentlemen, I just have to share this. A stark difference from the last time an administrator was hired in the township. Like, I came across this article detailing the process. This is from 2010.
And guys lives in
You're
his
always
head
keen
too.
on double dipping, so you could probably enlighten me on this, but because of state laws concerning rehiring retired employees, Geis cannot start with the township until March 29th. I'll skip ahead.
By the way, Michael,
While most of the
your
people
sweetheart Linda
spoke were
Fraley,
in
she's a
support of
double
Geis,
dipper.
others were concerned about the process. The trustees did not advertise the vacant position or interview any candidates other than Geis. Several residents had comments. Here's one. We have an opportunity to look for a qualified administrator for Union Township. We need to advertise the position and pick the best qualified. If Geis is the best qualified, fine, but you need to advertise and make it fair. Another former trustee candidate, John McGraw, also was unhappy that Geis was the only person interviewed for the job. He said bringing Geis in without the proper application and interview process looks shady. End quote. Union Township had been moving forward towards openness, and this just puts a lid on that again. I think this does a great.
Couldn't we say that about what you did in this meeting? We were moving towards openness, but you put a lid on it again. And let's remember that when Ken Geis was coming back, Michael Logue, you didn't bring this up, that the township was in a disaster. We had the Doug Walker multi-million-dollar fraud scandal. Ken Geis was a known commodity that had done a great job before he was a administrator. He had retired. He was coming back. We should thank God he came back versus your little tin soldier routine of having to try to demean a man that you would not be worthy to wear his you-know-what, okay? Ken Geis was a godsend to our community. And this thing where even when you're selecting a new administrator, you have to spend time demonizing Ken Geis and the past trustees. What does that say about you? What does that say about you, Michael Logue? But let's keep going.
Great disservice. You're bringing him in under a black cloud. It's going to be hard for him to erase that, McGraw said. Those are just some highlights from this article.
And where were the comments made? In a public session that was
And it
conducted
does
before
actually
Geis was
indicate,
brought back, where people could
the
ask
administrator's
questions and make
salary. I'm not going
statements.
to go off on the side note of that because there was a question posed to us earlier, which I don't know if there's accurate information completely there, but
Yes, and
but
you're
yeah,
the king
gentlemen, I
of
just
not
thought that was
accurate
stark
information.
contrast. So with that, proud tonight to present our candidate for Township Administrator, Miss Susan Cohen Ayres. She was born and raised in the Cincinnati area following graduation from Turpin High School. Susan moved to Columbus, Ohio, obtained a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration with a focus in finance and international business from The Ohio State University. Susan then accepted a position as financial analyst for the NCR Corporation in Dayton, Ohio. In order to further her education, Susan went back to school and obtained a Juris Doctorate from Case Western Reserve University School of Law. From what I hear, it's a very prestigious and difficult school to make acceptance to. So, in 2007, she returned to the Cincinnati area to start her legal career with Hamilton County Public Defender and the Clinton County Prosecutor's Offices. In 2013, Susan accepted a position with the City of Middletown, Ohio Law Department. From 2013 through 2022, Susan worked diligently for the City of Middletown as a prosecuting attorney, assistant law director, general counsel, director, acting city manager, and assistant city manager. I think she's got a few things in common with Mr. Corey Wright. These experiences are rooted in the desire for making sure her local community is safe and thriving. When not working, Susan resides with her husband Jonathan and their rescue dog Oliver. You will often find Susan spending free time doting over nieces and nephews, rooting for the Buckeyes or the Bengals in the fall, and enjoying all the local theater, museums, and festivals that Cincinnati has to offer.
So you have all this mumbo jumbo, but as you watch this, Susan Cohen Ayres will never speak. She never gets to talk or introduce herself or say anything. You just get this wonderful stuff about the rescue dog and all this kind of rigmarole. Wouldn't we prefer to have, if we're going to have any transparency at the meeting where she is at, and you'll see her in a little bit here, that she would actually say something, that she would actually address the citizens in some way or just introduce herself? Or how about her getting up and telling us about herself versus you, Mr. Michael Logue, doing that? This is the kind of thing about openness and transparency that I thought you guys said you believed in. I don't know that you believed in it, but this is what you said you believed in. But instead, it's all very controlled, very scripted, very locked down in terms of the way things are done.
You know, during this interview process, Susan was just extremely impressive with great judgment, attitude, servant leadership mindset. I mean, we pressed hard on all of our candidates, and that's a great position to be in where you've got extremely well-qualified candidates, and it's making the right fit and determination for this township for what's needed now. And you know, I know Susan will face challenges, but we have full faith in her skills. I have full faith in her skills and background to represent our community with pride and dignity. And you know, the community made their voice known loud and clear that they want to change in the last 2 election cycles. And we believe Susan
And I thought that
will
change was supposed to be
execute our
transparency.
vision for that change. So, gentlemen, that's the topic that I present to you tonight with Resolution 2020-22-16, resolution appointing Township Administrator, approving the employment contract with Susan Cohen Ayres, and declaring it as an emergency. You declare it as an emergency because with a unanimous vote on that, it can take effect within 30 days.
That's not correct. An
gentlemen,
emergency
to
means it
adopt
takes
Resolution
effect immediately.
2022-16,
A non-emergency
I
means
am
it takes
looking for
it takes
a,
effect in 30 days.
A motion on that at this time, and then we can go to discussion.
So moved.
Second.
And gentlemen, discussion, I introduced it, so I'll let you have the floor here if you have anything additional to add there.
Ms. Ayres, Susan, you did a very good job in your interview process, and I felt like your personality will fit right in here. Your legal background, we like that a lot. And also, you know, the fact that you had a chest-out, chin-up confidence to you, I like that. And so, but you've done a lot of really good works as the working for Middletown, and so for me, it was, out of all the candidates, I thought you did a great job, and it was a no-brainer. I feel like you're from the east side of town, you're familiar with Claremont County, and tackling a project, you know, everyone knows that the big one is
The
East
thing I don't get is, why is
There's
Michael
no
Logue
doubt you're gonna
always
tackle that
shuffling
one,
papers
and
during
you get
meetings?
it
He's
done.
always
I feel
shuffling
very
papers
confident
around
with that with you, and,
to the point
you
it
got
gets
big shoes to
distracting
fill
from the
with Mr.
person
Wright,
talking.
but there's no doubt, I think you will, and I know you will. So I can't speak for them, but I think I can. Fully have my support. I'm looking forward to working with you, and you're going to do a great job.
So, you know, when, I looked over the list of candidates, the resumes, and their applications, looked through it all. There was one of the dozen that we had that in my mind was a standout. And she also was a standout interviewing twice. You know, going into this, you know, I'm the cheapskate of the group up here. I'm always looking to keep costs to a minimum. We could have hired somebody for a whole lot less money. But it comes down to not necessarily less money, or who's the cheapest, but what's the best value? Who can we get the best bang for the buck with? And you know, I think we've made a good choice here with getting the best value. So, you know, so what am I thinking when I'm talking about best value? I made a list of the number of jobs she's going to be filling. I got 11 of them here. She's going to be the administrator. She's going to be the assistant administrator. She's going to be administrative assistant. She's going to be the zoning director.
What do
She's
you
gonna
want
be
to
the
bet
Human
we end
Director.
up hiring some of these
She's going to be the
positions?
Information Technologies
We have
Director,
an
the Information Systems
and
Director,
assistant administrator
the Finance
before. Are we
Director,
saying we're not
the
going to have
Public
an
Relations
assistant
Director,
administrator now?
the
He's
Legal
gonna do
Consultant,
everything?
and the Public Records Request Gopher, which is a bigger job than all of them put together, unfortunately.
A way to
So,
keep public
Ms.
records
Ayres has my,
requests down
full
is put
confidence,
stuff
and
online.
support.
Like the presentation you used in this meeting, I had to do a request to you to
Well,
get it because it was not online when
Thank
you
you,
said it was going
gentlemen,
to be
both on that.
online.
And you've heard me speak enough on that, but yes, I mean, wow, just her resume stands out. You know, everything from prosecuting 1,000 cases a month to then being that general counsel and law director and being the records, specialist for teaching about sunshine laws and everything else as that expertise. And as you recognize, I mean, we'll mention that, I think, later in the administrator's report. But, unfortunately, that's one of the natures of the environment and government right now, which is fine. But that is actually, that is something that fits that mold. So with that gentleman, and Joe, as he said, the mall. I mean, City of Middletown right now is redeveloping their mall. I mean, what recent and relevant
Middletown,
experience can you
that's
get
what
from
we want to
that?
become in Union
So,
Township, Middletown. They got their act together there.
If you've seen anything or heard anything, I know you called.
By the
all
way, on the
references,
open records thing too,
but
I
it's,
got a copy of her application
there's
and her
not a
contract
dull
and the
word
resolution,
to be
all
said.
by record request
Your
because
I think I see
none
your
of it,
family with you
zero
tonight,
of it
Susan.
was
They
online.
must be
These guys did
extremely
not
proud
put
of you.
anything online. You
Just,
could have only
we're
gotten
proud
that
of
stuff
you.
by coming to
I-
my Facebook
I've only
page.
known you for a couple weeks, so I'm
But
sure that they
records
are.
requests
At
take
this
up too
time,
much time.
gentlemen, entertain a motion to, if you have something additional to add?
Ready for roll call?
Ready for roll call, I'm sorry, motions were made. Yes, we'll close discussion and roll call, Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Dills?
Yes.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Logue?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Welcome, Susan.
So
Okay, so now what happens? That was her getting hired, and they took some pictures. But at the towards the end of the meeting, before they went into their other marathon executive session, which is now tied to everything these guys do, I don't think they've had. I'm not sure they've had any meeting without a notable executive session being either the meeting or a big part of the meeting. It's all become behind closed doors. But John Becker at the end of the meeting starts talking about wants to give more information on the process and how the process works. So maybe we should have heard this up front. Maybe we should have been told this before. But this is John Becker talking about the process and also putting forth some disinformation and misinformation that I want to clean up a little bit.
I want to talk a little bit about how we got to where we are tonight with the administrator. So first off, throughout January and February, we've had multiple executive sessions, multiple hours, and that's fine. I'm not complaining. What I'm pointing out is every one of them was because our previous administrator resigned.
The previous administrator resigned in mid-November of 2021, and gave 7 weeks notice. This process could have been started much earlier. They never went out to get resumes. I think the resumes were due back, I want to say, or applications back on February 18th. They knew on November 18th that Ken Geis was leaving. But let's talk about transition plan, et cetera. Let's go.
Not resign, and that's okay that he did, but had he not resigned, we wouldn't have had any executive session, zero. Now, we're going to have one tonight on a new topic, but this will be the first executive session we've had, that we have tonight, will be the first one we had, wasn't related to the former administrator leaving.
I don't think that's true. You've had some executive sessions on pending and imminent litigation already this year.
I also got thinking, I named 11 jobs our new administrator is doing. I did think of a 12th one. I don't know why I didn't lead with this one. Economic Development Director, I think I left that one off the list. There's probably still more, but if I keep thinking about those. And also, I just want to talk a little bit more about the process. So, we've covered kind of parts of this, I guess, earlier in the meeting. So, of course, when Mr. Geis resigned, we came in first of the year. Mr. Wright, the interim administrator. So.
And that was the transition plan. Mr. Wright is been lined up to be the next administrator. That was the transition plan.
So, and we're still, or at least two of us here, trying to kind of figure our way around. We've never been trustees before, and Mr. Logue's done a great job, Chairman Logue, leading us. And so and we're getting to know Mr. Wright and working with him, and he's taking the lead and taking the ball and running with it and doing a great job and showing us what to do and the do's and don'ts and also working with our fiscal officer on all this stuff. So, my expectation, and I think my colleagues up here agreed with this, is that we were going to move Mr. Wright into the administrator position.
Right. We had a transition plan. Corey Wright's supposed to become the next administrator.
So then he was going to backfill his position. So it was just a matter of hammering out those details and getting it done. Well, we just didn't get there. So then we find out Mr. Wright is leaving. Again, good for him. That's, the opportunity. I'd take the opportunity too if it'd been me. So now all of a sudden we're in panic mode. So now we don't have an administrator and our assistant administrator is leaving. It's like, oh crap, what do we do now? So we start scrambling and putting feelers out, and I'm calling people I know and the other board members calling people they know and saying who would be available or interested in applying for the job. So for 1 week, we had it open, and 1 week's not, a big time frame.
Right. 1 week's not a big time frame. Maybe you should have started earlier and had the time frame longer so you could get more candidates to apply.
To get resumes in, and we got a dozen. We looked over every one of those resumes. We interviewed 7 people. We just sent, each of us just sent names.
Why wasn't any of this told to us during the process, up front? Why couldn't they give us any updates even on how many applications, how many people have been interviewed? Everything is secret, and only John Becker's even commenting on what happened, but it's going to get more interesting as he talks.
To our law director who arranged the interviews. And then of those 7 we interviewed, we actually had a split at one point where it was each one of us had a separate person, a different person. It was a three-way split.
Hold on a second. How did you know you had a 3-way split? You're not supposed to be voting in executive session on who you want to be the next administrator. That's not supposed to be what happened, but you knew you had a 3-way split and you knew each of you had a one preferred candidate. I'm not sure that's kosher in terms of public meeting laws.
On who we thought was the best person. After a second round of interviews, then it became clear to us who the best person was. And then the administrator worked with the law director to then work on a contract.
So they directed in executive session the administrator to work with the law director on a contract. I think that's an action. I think that's a decision that has taken place in executive session, which those things aren't supposed to happen in executive session.
Hence commencing tonight. So I just really wanted to kind of tell the story, and I hope I didn't tell too much. But
he's worried. We can't make sure not to tell too much. Don't want to be too transparent.
That's basically, the whole process of what we went through and how we got to where we are today.
So that was part one. There was some other discussion. Then John Becker talked again and told more about the process.
If that's okay.
Yes, of course.
So, I guess another thing, it's an important piece, component of all of this that nobody would know unless you were in executive session with us. The 3 of us were very different. We have different priorities, different ideals, different styles, and we worked together very well. I mean, we had different opinions. We respected each other's opinions. We listened. We debated. And I think at one point I pounded my fist on the table, making a point about something. I don't remember what it was. But yeah, we got animated. We weren't exactly hollering back and forth at each other or anything, but we had a really good debate, and pros and cons, and we were at a stalemate a couple of times, and eventually we came to a conclusion, and that was just an awesome process the whole way around.
So we came to a conclusion in executive session. If you remember when the Pierce Township trustees replaced trustee Bonnie Batchelor, they had executive sessions. They ended up having to pay $1,500 for improper calls for executive session. But they then came out and in public had different motions for different people to be put into that position. They didn't decide in executive session and then come out and have only that one. So the administrator's a little bit different situation. But again, it sounds to me like they basically voted in an executive session previously back on the 25th, I would guess, which was our last executive session where Michael Logue, they came out of the executive session saying no action had been taken. Well, they had voted, they had picked a candidate, and they had instructed the acting administrator, Corey Wright, to go with the law director and work a contract for a particular person. Sounds to me like that was an action. Sounds to me like the decision was made then, not last night in the meeting.
Thanks for that comment. Public comments.
Okay. So that is the kind of the highlights from the meeting last night of what happened in the administrator selection. Hey, look, I actually wish Susan Cohen Ayres the best of luck in this. I think it's a disservice to the community, and I think it's a disservice to her that there was not a more transparent process around this. And by the lack of a transparent process around it, by the lack of sharing of finalist information, I think now these trustees own it, and they own it 150%. 150%. And I can't believe I mentioned on the chart that was up how much the Miller Place people have been completely hypocritical to their demands for uber transparency, but now it's not that important. Whatever Michael Logue and Joe Dills and John Becker want to do is cool. It's all good, and we can move on. So the process is now done. This person, Susan Cohen Ayres, is selected. She doesn't start, I think, for 2 more weeks. And we'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens. I asked her after the meeting, I went up and introduced myself and talked to her. And I asked her if she would have, I said, I think you should have an open public session where people can get to know you and ask questions. And she wouldn't commit. She offered, well, I can have like individual coffees with people. Like, well, why don't you do an open thing where people can come and ask you questions? And again, she wouldn't commit. She hemmed and hawed. I don't think that's the kind of transparency we were looking for. I frequently encouraged Ken Geis to get more involved and invited him to come and present at Union Township Republican Central Committee meetings, which he did. And I think that Susan Cohen Ayres is going to have to make some tough decisions on whether she is going to be completely a party man and, Chris Hicks is evil. These other people are evil. Ken Geis is evil. We have to have the narrative. Or if she's going to actually be an inclusive administrator that is going to try to break through, frankly, the bullshit and the false narratives so that we can focus on the actual things that need to happen and how we can do them in a very transparent way. So thanks for listening and good luck, Susan Cohen Ayres. And I hope that you are successful because I live in Union Township and I need and want you to be successful.